I found the text message while he was in the shower. His phone was face up on the kitchen counter, and the notification lit up the screen like a neon sign I couldn't ignore. Can't wait to see you tonight. James left his laptop at the office again. He's so distracted lately. I wonder why. My hands started shaking before my brain could fully process what I was reading. The sender's name was just V, with a heart emoji. I didn't need to be a detective to figure out who V was. Vanessa Park, the 26-year-old marketing director at Whitfield Industries who always seemed to laugh a little too hard at my husband's jokes during company events. I stood there in our San Francisco penthouse, the fog rolling in outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, holding my husband's phone like it might explode. 6 years. We'd been married for 6 years. I'd supported James through his promotion to CEO, attended countless charity galas with his mother Victoria, smiled through family dinners where I was always reminded that I was the self-made daughter-in-law who didn't quite understand old money the way they did. The shower shut off. I had maybe 90 seconds before James walked out. I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened his messages. The texts went back 4 months. 4 months of, I miss you. And when can we meet again? And photos I couldn't bear to look at for more than a second. My vision blurred. I set the phone down exactly where I'd found it, walked to the guest bathroom, and threw up. That was 3 weeks ago. I'm a corporate lawyer. I've negotiated million-dollar deals. I've stared down opposing counsel who tried to intimidate me with their Harvard degrees and family connections. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what happened after I confronted James. He didn't deny it. That's what hurt the most. He just stood there in our bedroom, still damp from the shower, and said, "Maya, I'm sorry. I never meant for you to find out this way. Not I never meant to do it. Just I never meant for you to find out." "How long?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "Does it matter?" "How long?" He sighed like I was being unreasonable. 5 months. It just happened, Maya. We were working late on the Brennan acquisition, and I don't want the details. I cut him off. "I want you to leave." "Maya, can we just talk about this? Maybe we can go to counseling." "Get out of this room. Sleep in your office. I don't care where you go, but if you're here when I wake up tomorrow, I'm filing for divorce and making sure everyone knows why." He left. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I called my friend Rachel Kim. Rachel's also a lawyer, family law, specifically, and she'd been through her own divorce 2 years earlier. I told her everything while sitting in my car in the parking garage of my firm, unable to face going inside. "Document everything," Rachel said immediately. "Screenshots, dates, times. Do you have access to his calendar?" "I can get it." "Good." "Maya, listen to me. The Whitfields are worth billions. If you're going to do this, you need to be smart. Don't tell him you're gathering evidence. Don't tell anyone except me. And for God's sake, get a lawyer who's not afraid of going up against old money. You're talking like this is going to be a war. Honey, with Victoria Whitfield as your mother-in-law, this is going to be the battle of your life." Rachel was right. I spent the next week quietly building my case. I hired a private investigator who confirmed what I already knew. James and Vanessa had been meeting at a boutique hotel in Nob Hill twice a week for 5 months. I copied financial records. I documented everything. Then I filed for divorce. Victoria called me within 3 hours. "Maya, darling, I think we should talk before this gets out of hand." Her voice was smooth, controlled, the voice of a woman who'd spent 60 years getting exactly what she wanted. "Why don't you come to the house?" "Just us. Woman to woman." I knew it was a trap. I went anyway. The Whitfield estate in Pacific Heights was the kind of house that gets featured in architectural magazines. I'd been there dozens of times for family dinners, holidays, charity events, but walking up those marble steps that afternoon felt different. I wasn't family anymore. I was an obstacle to be removed. Victoria was waiting in the library, sitting in a leather armchair like a queen on a throne. She didn't stand when I entered, didn't offer tea or wine like she usually did, just gestured to the chair across from her. "You look tired, dear." "I haven't been sleeping well," I said. "Betrayal will do that." "Yes, I'm sure this has been very difficult for you." She folded her hands in her lap. "That's why I wanted to speak with you privately. I think we can resolve this situation in a way that benefits everyone." Everyone meaning the Whitfield family reputation. A small smile. "I've always appreciated your directness, Maya. It's one of your better qualities. So let me be direct as well. You're planning to divorce my son, which is your right, but a public divorce with allegations of infidelity would be very damaging to Whitfield Industries. Our stock price, our business relationships, James's position as CEO, all of it would be affected. Maybe he should have thought about that before sleeping with his employee. Perhaps. Victoria's expression didn't change. But what's done is done. The question now is how we move forward. I'm prepared to offer you a settlement. $4 million. Tax-free. In exchange, you sign a non-disclosure agreement, agree to a no-fault divorce, and relocate out of California. I stared at her. You want to pay me to disappear. I want to compensate you for 6 years of marriage and ensure that this situation doesn't become public. $4 million is more than generous, Maya. It's more than you'd get in a contested divorce, and it comes without the stress and expense of litigation. And if I say no? Victoria's smile faded. Then I'll make sure every law firm in California knows you're difficult to work with, that you're unstable, that you can't be trusted. I have connections, Maya. Connections you can't imagine. Your career would be over before you could bill your first hour. My hands were clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms, but I kept my voice level. I need to think about it. You have 48 hours. I left the estate feeling like I couldn't breathe. Victoria Whitfield had just threatened to destroy my career, my reputation, everything I'd worked for, and she'd done it while offering me $4 million. It was brilliant. Terrifying and brilliant. I drove straight to Rachel's office. She offered you $4 million? Rachel's eyes went wide. Maya, that's actually not bad for 6 years of marriage, especially with no kids. She also threatened to blacklist me from every firm in California. Can she do that? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. I dropped into a chair. What do I do? Rachel was quiet for a moment. Then she said, You negotiate. You're a lawyer, Maya. This is what you do. She opened at $4 million because she expects you to counter. So counter. With what? Everything she doesn't want. Public allegations, depositions, discovery. Make her so afraid of what a trial would expose that she'll pay whatever you ask. I thought about it. Then I said, What if I asked for $8 million? Rachel grinned. Now you're thinking like a divorce lawyer. I went back to Victoria 48 hours later with a counteroffer. $8 million, structured as $5 million upfront and $3 million in a trust fund released over 3 years, contingent on my relocation to Vancouver and maintaining the NDA. In exchange, James would waive all future claims to any assets I acquired post-divorce, and the NDA would be mutual, meaning Victoria and James couldn't publicly disparage me either. Victoria made me wait 3 days before responding. When she finally called, she said simply, Agreed. But you'll need to be out of California within 30 days. Fine. And Maya? This is the last time we'll speak. Once you sign those papers, you're no longer part of this family. I hope you understand that. Perfectly. I signed the divorce papers on a Tuesday afternoon in my lawyer's office. James wasn't there, he'd sent his attorney. I didn't care. I watched the $5 million transfer into my account and felt absolutely nothing. No relief. No satisfaction. Just emptiness. I had 30 days to leave California. I spent them packing up 6 years of my life, saying goodbye to friends, and trying not to think about how completely my world had been dismantled. Rachel flew up to Vancouver with me to help me find an apartment. We found a beautiful 2-bedroom in Yaletown with views of False Creek. It was smaller than the penthouse in San Francisco, but it was mine. Bought with money I'd negotiated for. Nobody could take it from me. You're going to be okay, Rachel said as we unpacked boxes in my new kitchen. Better than okay. You're going to build something amazing here. I wanted to believe her. 2 weeks after I moved to Vancouver, I went to a walk-in clinic to establish a new doctor for my work permit application. The Canadian immigration process required a health screening, and I needed documentation for my lawyer's work visa. The doctor was a friendly woman in her 50s who chatted about Vancouver's rain while she went through the standard checks. Blood pressure, heart rate, basic blood work. Just routine, she said. We'll have the results in a few days. The office will call you. I forgot about it. I was too busy trying to set up my new life. I'd been in touch with a few boutique law firms in Vancouver about potential positions, but nothing felt right. I had enough money that I didn't need to rush into anything. Maybe I'd take some time, figure out what I actually wanted. The clinic called on a Friday afternoon. "Miss Chen? This is Dr. Patterson's office. Your blood work came back, and the doctor would like to see you in person to discuss the results. Can you come in this afternoon?" My stomach dropped. Is something wrong? The doctor just prefers to discuss results in person. We have an opening at 4 if that works for you. I spent the next 3 hours convinced I had cancer. Or lupus. Or some rare blood disorder. I Googled symptoms until Rachel called and told me to stop. "It's probably nothing," she said. "They always make you come in for everything in Canada. Different system." At 4 o'clock, I sat in Dr. Patterson's office, my hands twisted in my lap, waiting for her to tell me I was dying. Instead, she smiled and said, "Congratulations, you're pregnant." I stopped breathing. "I what?" "You're about 6 weeks along. The blood work shows elevated HCG levels, which indicates pregnancy. Have you been experiencing any symptoms? Nausea, fatigue, breast tenderness?" I had been tired. And my period was late. But I'd attributed that to stress, to the divorce, to moving to a new country. 6 weeks, I repeated. "Are you sure? The blood work is very clear. I'd recommend scheduling an ultrasound to confirm the gestational age and make sure everything looks healthy. Do you have any questions?" I had about 1,000 questions, but the only one that came out was, "The father. We're divorced. He doesn't know. He can't know." Dr. Patterson's expression softened. "That's entirely your choice, Miss Chen. You're not obligated to tell anyone about your pregnancy if you don't want to, but I would encourage you to think about what kind of support system you'll need. Pregnancy and parenting are challenging enough without going through it alone." I left the clinic in a daze. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes before I called Rachel. "I'm pregnant." Silence. Then, "James's?" "Yes." It had to have happened right before I found the texts. We hadn't been intimate much in those last few months, but there was one night, maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel. "Rachel, what do I do? Do you want to keep it?" I'd never thought about having children. James and I had always said someday, maybe, but it was never a priority. We were focused on our careers. But sitting there in that parking lot, my hand instinctively moved to my stomach. "Yes," I said, "I want to keep it." "Then you don't tell James. You don't tell Victoria. You signed an NDA and took $8 million to disappear. So disappear. Have this baby. Build your life here. And if they ever find out, which they won't, you're protected." James waived all parental rights in the divorce settlement. "Did he? Let me pull up the documents." I heard typing. Then, here it is. Clause 7, subsection C. Husband waives any and all claims to future assets, property, or interests acquired by wife post-dissolution, including but not limited to business ventures, real estate, and personal holdings. Your lawyer wrote it broad enough that it would cover a child conceived during the marriage but born after divorce. That's a stretch. Maybe. But it's also your ace in the hole if they ever come after you for custody. Which they won't. Because they're never going to know. I wanted to believe her. For 3 months, I kept my secret. I scheduled prenatal appointments under my new Vancouver doctor. I started taking vitamins. I bought books about pregnancy and parenting. I even started looking at baby furniture online late at night when I couldn't sleep. I also started building my law firm. It started as an idea: what if I used Victoria's money to create something meaningful? What if I opened a practice specifically focused on helping women navigate difficult divorces? Women who were being bullied by wealthy families, who didn't know their rights, who needed someone in their corner who wasn't afraid to fight. I rented a small office space in downtown Vancouver, hired a paralegal, designed a website. Chen Family Law opened its doors 3 months after I moved to Canada, and within 2 weeks, I had my first client, a woman whose tech executive husband had hidden assets in offshore accounts. I got her a settlement worth twice what she'd been offered. Word spread. By the time I was 4 months pregnant, I had a waiting list of clients. By 5 months, I'd hired 2 associate attorneys. The firm was growing faster than I'd anticipated, and I was working 60-hour weeks trying to keep up. Rachel flew up for a weekend when I was 5 months along. "You're glowing," she said, hugging me at the airport. "And huge." "How is that possible?" Thanks for that. I laughed. The doctor says everything looks good. It's a boy. A boy. Rachel squeezed my hands. Maya, I'm so happy for you. You're building this incredible life. The firm is taking off. You're about to be a mom. I'm terrified, I admitted. What if I can't do this? What if I'm a terrible mother? What if... Stop. You're going to be amazing. And you're not alone. I'm going to be the world's best aunt. Your parents are thrilled. My mom cried for an hour when I told her. I said, my parents, Vietnamese immigrants who'd worked 2 jobs each to put me through law school, had been shocked by my divorce but overjoyed about becoming grandparents. They were already planning to fly up from San Diego for the birth. See? You have people who love you. You have a successful business. You have a beautiful home. You don't need the Whitfields. You never did. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But I should have known it wouldn't be that simple. I was 6 months pregnant when I got the email. It came from an address I didn't recognize, but the subject line made my blood run cold. We need to talk about James's child. I opened it with shaking hands. Miss Chen, my name is Margaret Whitfield. I'm James's father's sister, and I've recently become aware of your pregnancy. I understand this must be a difficult situation, but I believe we should discuss custody arrangements and financial support for the child. Please call me at your earliest convenience. I read it 3 times before I could process what was happening. Then I called Rachel. How did they find out? I demanded. Nobody knows except you and my parents. I haven't told anyone in San Francisco. I haven't posted anything online. How? Maya. Slow down. Who emailed you? Margaret Whitfield. James's aunt. Okay. Don't panic. Do you know her? I met her twice. She's Richard's sister, James's dad. She seemed nice, but she's still a Whitfield. Don't respond to the email. Don't call her. Let me do some digging first. If Victoria knows you're pregnant, we need to figure out our strategy before you engage with anyone in that family. But it was too late. The next day, I got a call from an unknown California number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Maya? It's Richard Whitfield, James's father. I'd always liked Richard. He was quieter than Victoria, more thoughtful. He'd actually defended me a few times during family dinners when Victoria made snide comments about my background. Mr. Whitfield, I'm surprised to hear from you. I'm sure you are. Maya, I'm calling because my sister Margaret saw you last week when she was in Vancouver for a conference. She recognized you at a restaurant, and she noticed you were pregnant. I closed my eyes. Of all the terrible luck. She mentioned it to me before she mentioned it to Victoria, Richard continued, which gives us a small window to talk. Maya, is the child James's? I could have lied. Maybe I should have lied. But I was so tired of lying, of hiding, of being afraid. Yes. Richard was quiet for a long moment. Does James know? No. And I'd like to keep it that way. Maya, I understand you have no reason to trust this family after what happened, but that child is my grandchild. I'd like to be part of their life, even if James isn't. With all due respect, Mr. Whitfield, James waived all parental rights in the divorce settlement. That includes you. I don't think that clause would hold up in court if we challenged it. My hand tightened on the phone. Is that a threat? It's a reality. Maya, I don't want to fight you. But Victoria does. And if she finds out about this, when she finds out, she's going to come after you with everything she has. She's going to argue that you hid the pregnancy to defraud the family, that you're unfit to raise a Whitfield heir, that you should never have been given that settlement. She can try. She'll win. You know she will. She has unlimited resources and the best lawyers on the West Coast. Richard sighed. But I can help you. If you let me. How? Let me tell Victoria myself. Let me frame this as a positive, a grandchild for the family. I'll make sure she understands that fighting you would be a mistake. That the negative publicity of a custody battle would be far worse than simply accepting the situation. Why would you do that for me? Because you're a good person, Maya. You didn't deserve what James did to you. And because I don't want to lose another chance to be a grandfather. Victoria drove James away with her controlling behavior. I won't let her do the same with my grandchild. I didn't know if I could trust him, but I also knew I couldn't fight Victoria Whitfield alone. Okay, I said finally. But I have conditions. Name them. James doesn't get custody or visitation unless I agree. The child keeps my last name, and if Victoria tries anything at all, the deal is off and I'll fight this publicly with every resource I have. Agreed. Richard kept his word. He told Victoria about the pregnancy, and for 3 weeks, I heard nothing. I started to hope that maybe, just maybe, she decided to leave me alone. Then my lawyer in Vancouver received a letter from a prestigious San Francisco law firm. Whitfield Industries was suing me for custody of my unborn child. The allegations were absurd. They claimed I'd hidden the pregnancy to defraud them out of additional settlement money. They claimed I was mentally unstable due to the divorce. They claimed that as a single mother running a new business, I wouldn't be able to provide a stable environment for the child. They wanted sole custody transferred to James upon the child's birth, with me having supervised visitation. I sat in my lawyer's office, 7 months pregnant, reading through the filing, and I felt something I hadn't felt since the day I found those text messages. Rage. Pure, white-hot rage. Can they do this? I asked my lawyer. A sharp woman in her 60s named Patricia Chen. No relation. But she joked it was fate when I hired her. They can try. Will they succeed? Not if I have anything to say about it. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Maya, I've been practicing family law for 35 years. I've seen wealthy families try every trick in the book to get what they want. But this case? This is egregious. You have documentation that James waived parental rights. You have an NDA that they're now violating by making these claims public. And most importantly, you're not in California anymore. They filed in San Francisco because that's where the divorce was finalized, but you're a Canadian resident now. We can fight to have this case dismissed for lack of jurisdiction. How long will that take? Months, maybe a year. I'm due in 2 months. I know. Which is why we're going to file an emergency motion to dismiss and a countersuit for harassment and breach of contract. We're going to make this so expensive and so public that Victoria Whitfield will regret ever sending that letter. I can't afford a court battle with Whitfield Industries. Patricia smiled. Who said anything about you paying? We're going to petition the court to have them pay your legal fees as part of their bad faith filing, and I'm taking this case pro bono anyway. I hate bullies, especially rich ones. The next 3 months were a blur of court filings, depositions, and stress that I'm sure wasn't good for the baby. But through it all, Patricia was a warrior. She subpoenaed Victoria's communications and found emails discussing how to discredit the Chen woman. She got James's father, Richard, to testify he admitted under oath that Victoria had pushed for the custody suit against his advice and that he believed I was a fit mother. And then came the bombshell. Patricia's investigator discovered that Vanessa Park, James's mistress, had faked a pregnancy early in their affair to pressure James into leaving me. When Victoria found out through her own private investigator, instead of telling James the truth, she'd paid Vanessa $2 million to disappear and keep quiet about the fake pregnancy. Patricia filed it as evidence that Victoria Whitfield had a pattern of manipulating family situations for her own benefit, including bribing women to disappear. The local news picked up the story. Tech billionaire's mother caught paying off son's mistress made headlines across San Francisco. Whitfield Industries stock dropped 3 points in 1 day. 3 days later, I got a call from Richard. Victoria wants to settle. I was 8 months pregnant, exhausted, and so over all of this. What are her terms? She drops the custody suit. You drop the countersuit and the NDA violation claims. James will have no custody rights, but he'll pay child support $5,000 a month, and she's offering an apology. Victoria Whitfield doesn't apologize. She will this time. Maya, please, take the settlement. Let this end. I talked to Patricia. She agreed it was a good deal better than dragging this through courts for another year. I accepted. 2 weeks later, I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. I named him Daniel Chen, Daniel after my father, Chen because he was mine. My parents flew up and stayed for a month. Rachel came for 2 weeks. My office associates sent flowers and gifts. I had never felt more supported or more loved. James never visited, never called. The child support payments arrived on time every month, but that was the only evidence that he even knew his son existed. Though Richard asked if he could visit when Daniel was 3 months old, I said yes. He flew to Vancouver and spent an afternoon at my apartment, holding his grandson, asking about my firm, admitting that his marriage to Victoria was essentially over. She's never forgiven me for testifying against her, he said, but I don't regret it. "You're a good mother, Maya. This boy is lucky to have you." Before he left, he asked if he could visit again. I said yes. 2 years later, my firm has 5 employees and a reputation for taking on impossible cases. We've won over 50 settlements for women who were told they couldn't fight their wealthy exes. I've been featured in Vancouver Magazine as one of the city's top up-and-coming attorneys. Daniel is healthy, happy, and obsessed with trucks. My parents visit every other month. Rachel is his godmother and spoils him rotten. Richard visits 3 times a year and has set up a trust fund for Daniel's education, not a Whitfield trust. He made sure to specify. A grandfather's trust. Last week, I got an email from Victoria's assistant. Mrs. Whitfield wishes to express her regret regarding the events of the past 2 years and would like to extend an invitation to meet her grandson. I read it twice, then I deleted it without responding. Some doors, once closed, should stay closed. That evening, I sat in the rocking chair in Daniel's room, watching him sleep, and I thought about the day I found those text messages, the day my life fell apart. If someone had told me then that I'd end up here in a different country, running my own firm, raising a child alone, I would have thought it was impossible. I would have been terrified. But sitting there in the dark, listening to my son breathe, I realized something. I wasn't alone. I had never been alone. I had myself. And I had always been enough. Daniel stirred in his crib, and I reached down to brush his hair back from his forehead. "It's okay, baby," I whispered. "Mama's here. Mama's always here." And for the first time in 2 years, I felt completely at peace.